Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today, we've got another gun gripe episode for you, and this one's a doozy. There's been a lot of things going on. In case you've been living under a rock, you've certainly seen some things happening here in the 2A world and the political environment. We're going to try to get into a few things. You know, we usually take a few weeks off around Christmas. So I know a lot of people have been asking us to touch on some certain subjects, and we are going to try to get onto those here over the next few videos. And I appreciate your patience. We're finally getting back to filming some stuff, so I appreciate you guys being patient. I would like to take a moment to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute. They have some wonderful gunsmithing programs. If you want to increase your knowledge in the firearms technology world, they accept VA benefits, GI Bill, all of that type of stuff. So if you guys have ever wanted to take any type of classes, they're definitely a great group of people to look into. Check them out, SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute. So let's get into this a little bit. This first video coming back, we really want to focus on pending legislation. Now, a lot of the things that we're going to go over in this particular video, the text for these bills hasn't even really been you know, submitted yet. It's just more of a draft and it's kind of out there. But if you go to congress.gov, you can look up a whole list of, there are some pro-gun bills that have been submitted. We'll go over those as well. But of course, with the oncoming administration, they've made it their goal and their mission to attack the Second Amendment and to, quote, defeat the NRA, unquote. So
all right.
They want to defeat the NRA, which I'm overly not positive if they haven't already done that to themselves. I'm not sure what defeating there is to do there, but
I wasn't going to say it, but I mean, it's a hard truth. Sorry.
Anyway, I digress. Let's stick to the facts here. We're going to look at some of these House resolutions that have been submitted, and some of them are doozies. You guys may remember back around, I want to say early November, we put out a video where we discussed the Biden-Harris gun grab agenda and all of the plans that they've laid out that obviously were on their website. It's all public information. It's not conjecture. It's all black and white, what they have proposed, their actions to fight the Second Amendment, essentially. And it's very scary stuff. We are going to go through some of these bills. There are quite a few of them. And because there's not a lot of text for some of these yet, we don't know the exact wording of the bills. We just mainly want to make sure you guys realize that this is the type of stuff they're proposing. So we'll just sort of go down the list, and we'll talk about the anti-gun ones as well as a few pro-gun bills that have been introduced as well. So let's kind of go down the list, Chad.
Here we are again.
2021, baby.
Well, we made it a few days into 2021 before the world went to pot, right?
Well, I reckon.
Let's see what the rest of the year brings. So many of these bills were, I think it's what's called pre-filing. So a lot of the bills were pre-filed. And like Eric said, the actual text of the bills aren't there. But, I mean, one can deduce if you've been in this world for a while and you've been a gun owner for a while and you know how hard the hard left, you know, fights against gun ownership and gun rights as a whole. I think you can, you know, assume what some of these bills will mean by the title. And many of them come from our lovely Representative Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas. Okay, she's one of the anti-gun.
Yay, Texas.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's one of the big anti-gunners in the House. Okay. Yeah. Along with Pelosi and the rest of them. But the main thing, here's one here. All right, this is from Al Green in Texas. This is H.R. 167, to prohibit the transfer of a firearm at a gun show by a person who is not a federally licensed firearms dealer. So ultimately, doing away with private transfers at gun shows. You go to a gun show, you can buy from a dealer who's got a table set up there, or you can go and buy from another individual as a private sale, which is completely legal in most every state here in the United States. Okay, you go to a gun show, you buy someone else's property, you give them money for that property, you take possession of that property, and there is a transfer that's made. They want to do away with that, which is kind of getting into the vein of like universal background checks. We've talked about this in the past, where, okay, any sale, okay, that you want to make as a private citizen of a piece of property that you own that happens to be a firearm would have to go through a licensed dealer, and you would have to fill out a 4473 and transfer it just like you would if you were buying a new gun. That way, if at any time the ATF, the DOJ, being directed by the administration, wants to basically pull those records, they have 4473 on all those transfers. So ultimately, it's kind of a backdoor registration scheme, as we've mentioned in the past.
The ATF and the DOJ, FBI, what have you, you know, the NICS system is ran through the FBI. So whenever they run a NICS check, it goes through an FBI background check. And it's more of, like, imagine a credit card inquiry, right? So if something were to pop up on your credit, it pops up in an inquiry, right? The background check is a similar type of thing. It doesn't tell them like a ton of details. It just tells them whether or not you're a prohibited person or not. It's really, really simple. And of course, there's a certain list of criteria under which if you are a prohibited person, it's going to deny you on the background check. So the issue with this, right, is while the government wants to know exactly where every single gun goes when it leaves, you know, it goes from the firearms manufacturer to the distributor, and then usually from a distributor to the gun store, like your local FFL, your local gun store, you go and you buy a gun, and then when it's transferred to the end user, it goes on a Form 4473. You guys might know that they changed the Form 4473 to include the information of the buyer and the information of the transferred gun to the front of the form. The ATF, DOJ, FBI, what have you, are not supposed to maintain a registry. That was made quite clear in previous laws that were passed. And while we do have these horrible gun control laws that were passed in the past, they do lay out specific guidelines that a registry is not supposed to be, you know, maintained. All right.
And 4473s have to be maintained by an FFL for, I believe, 20 years.
So, all right. So during this 20-year period, the idea being, and what Chad is getting at is, if the firearm in question is used in a crime, all right, say that there's some criminal act that's occurred and you've got this random gun left at a scene, or let's say someone has found a firearm or something, whatever the case may be, they need to know, all right, where did that gun get transferred to last? Who got it or whatever? The idea being that they can take the serial number on that gun. This is the guise of why it exists, right? I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just telling you this is why they do it.
These are the facts.
These are the facts, okay? They take the firearm serial number and they go, okay, Colt, whoever you are. They go to Colt and they go, all right, Colt, here, who'd you sell this gun to? I sold it to Jim Bob's Distributors. Jim Bob's Distributors goes, I sold it to Joe Blow's Pawn. Joe Blow's Pawn goes, I sold it to Jim Bob right here. Here's the 4473. Then the investigating officer or whoever, they go, okay, Jim Bob, where's this? Tell me why this gun showed up here. Why is this gun sitting on a bloody corpse in this murder scene? That's the reason that sort. So to trace where the gun went is one thing. To have a registry is another. So the issue with a bill like HR 167, the issue with 167 is the only. They ultimately want universal background checks, but in order for that to even have the slightest legal clout to stand in, they have to have universal registration, which of course that's acknowledged. Stepping stone. That's later on in these bills. Of course, they want universal registration as well. So, you know that we don't agree with any of that. It goes without saying that while we report what we see here and while we tell you their reasoning for it, it doesn't mean we agree with it, right? Of course we don't. We have to fight this tooth and nail. And while, yes, there may not be any text existing, these are just pre-filings, I want to make sure people understand what's at stake. Before we go any further, I just want to add, you know, there's over 8 million new gun owners that we know of, right? That's just NICS background checks. That doesn't include private party sales or anything like that. But there are over, we can assume probably double that amount, but we know of 8 million. And
also, people can buy, you can have one background check, and you can buy X number of firearms. So you can buy multiple firearms on one 4473. So these numbers and like the FBI statistics are really just the baseline amount of what the potential like new guns that were put on the market.
And it also doesn't include people who possessed a concealed carry permit that you don't have to undergo a background check. So it means that, yes, I fill out a 4473, and yes, the guns that I purchase go on that form, but I don't actually undergo a background check because I'm in possession of a carry permit. So by the time you factor in carry permits and by the time you factor in private party sales, that 8 million new gun owners could easily be double that amount. So let's just say 16 million, more than likely, 16 million new gun owners who through fear of everything that's going on. Now, I'm not going to get into why they could be scared, right? There's any number of reasons. Maybe you live in a bad neighborhood. Maybe you're just worried about the political climate. Who cares what your reasoning is? It's no one's place to judge you on why you own a gun, right? If you're a law-abiding citizen, you're a normal person, just wants to protect themselves, or hunt, or go shoot with your grandkids, or whatever you want to have a gun for, that is your prerogative.
Also, real quick, it also doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican, conservative, independent, whatever, it doesn't matter because the 2A is a universal right. And if you are a staunch Democrat and you vote for Democrats, okay, and they support anti-gun legislation, you are supporting the very people and the very politics that would seek to take that firearm away from you and remove your right to self-defense.
Right.
Just think about that.
That was going to be my next sentence.
So,
was going to be that what I was going to say was, no, it's okay. You're right. But what I was going to say is that with all these new gun owners, they're literally voting. And I think a lot of cases, some of them are just ignorant to the facts and they don't know that they're voting for the party that wants to take away their gun rights. And then, okay, the first session of Congress, like 2021, bam, fresh, clean slate. What do you see? Boom, all this stuff, a complete laundry list. So there are a lot of Democrats that are pro-gun and don't agree with this type of stuff, right? So we see that in recent political events that have occurred, there have been voting across the aisles for things that maybe a large part of each side's constituency may not necessarily agree with, right? Yep. You're seeing the bipartisan support of things, right? So the danger there is that how do we know that there aren't going to be Republicans that are going to jump ship and vote yay for things like H.R. 167? Now, right now, there's a Democrat-controlled majority in the House, in the Senate, and of course, the presidency. So the issue there is that when you see these people roll through so much gun control immediately, and that's like their first goal, right? We already see all the censorship. Big tech has censored tons of conservative voices, okay? It's just crazy. So let's go down the list. There's more, but I feel like it's important by making the distinction that this is not a left or right issue. This is not a political issue. Second Amendment is one of the most clearly worded rights.
Universal rights.
It is a universal right, and it is a very essential basic human right that our founding fathers acknowledged, right? So it doesn't matter how you feel about politics or where you stand on that part of the aisle. It is something that affects everyone, blue, red, and in between, everybody in between. So it's important to make that distinction that this is not a one-sided issue. This affects everyone who's watching this video, no matter what you believe, good and bad.
Also, remember the Senate is a 50-50 split, with Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker as the president of the Senate. You know, but a lot of bills have to pass with filibuster right now. That's why the Democrats pushed to remove the filibuster in previous years, because that's a 60-person vote, or a 60-vote margin that they have to get certain legislation through. You know, whether or not some of these anti-gun bills would need to pass that muster is to be seen. I'm not really familiar with that aspect of politics, and at least the details of it. But a lot of bills do have to have that 60-vote margin, and they'll wheel and deal and do whatever they have to do to get those votes in. But I'd like to look at it with, as the glass is half full, okay? I mean, I don't want to be too much of an alarmist or a defeatist or whatever the case might be. But you have to really think about the individual districts and the individual states or whatever that these representatives represent as a whole. And, not everybody in the state is going to be for these pieces of legislation, especially, like Eric mentioned, with all the new gun owners that are out there. They need to be educated, come into the fold, and become, advocates for the Second Amendment, and ultimately for a political culture or cultural change. Anyways,
no, you're absolutely correct, and I think it's also worth mentioning before we move.
We're going to move on at some point.
No, but it's important to lay this out, though, because people need to understand where we're coming from on this. So before we move on, one thing that I'll add is that in every single situation where President Biden has been asked, right, about his willingness to pack the Supreme Court, he always skates around the issue, or he ignores it, or he won't answer the question. He'll never give a direct answer. Mm-hmm. That's the other danger, is the Democrats want to pack the Supreme Court. Now, it's worth mentioning that the courts haven't exactly been overly friendly to Second Amendment rights advocates. You know, very little Second Amendment related Supreme Court cases have actually been heard. And of course, the federal courts have failed us. All the lower courts have failed us. It's an uphill battle in terms of being in the courts. But Firearms Policy Coalition is doing a great job. If you can donate to them, Gun Owners of America, a couple of great groups there that are really taking the fight in terms of legally challenging a lot of the stuff that's going on. I mean, remember, okay, Trump signed the executive order on bump stocks. We are just now getting to the point, literally within weeks of now, where that case is actually finally going to be heard, right? So these legal proceedings take time. Things take a long time and a lot of money to shake down in court. It's very legally cumbersome and very fiscally, expensive, right? Just financially, very big financial burden is what I'm trying to say. So the point I'm trying to make is that while yes, we may have what we would consider a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, don't think that they won't try to stack the Supreme Court. With all of the above being said, let's go to the next one.
All right, so H.R. 127, this is from Sheila Jackson Lee, to provide for the licensing of firearm and ammunition possession and the registration of firearms, and to prohibit the possession of certain ammunition. So here we are back at this registration scheme, all right? So the text for this bill is not available, but one can assume that this is a full-fledged firearms registration scheme, okay, and a firearms licensing scheme, where you, as a gun owner, will have to register with the federal government to acquire a license to own firearms, just like you have to do in certain states. Like in Illinois, you have to have a FOID card, a Firearms Owner's Identification Card, and there are certain, phases that you have to go through in order to, certain things that you have to go through that are very draconian to get that license, okay? It's the same, sort of like applying for a carry permit, but 10 times worse, okay? Applying for, or say, purchasing an NFA item, okay, and having to file all this paperwork and send in a tax and all this mess. FOID cards have a fee associated with them, okay? You have to pay for the privilege of being able to own firearms in these states. That's their gist, okay, which it is not a privilege to own firearms. It is a right for you to own firearms. But the states would dictate otherwise in some cases. So nationwide FOID cards, all right? So the government knows that you own firearms, and then they're going to force you to register all those arms, just like they have registration schemes over like in Great Britain. All right, and our European brethren over there have a lot of firearms laws that they have to follow, and once the licensing takes place and then the registration takes place, all it takes is one catalyst, like a mass shooting or whatever the case might be, and then all of a sudden one entire category of firearms is removed, and they know exactly what you have. They're going to come to your doors and they're going to take your firearms away from you, and that's going to be the end of it. And then they're going to move down the line and keep taking and chipping away more and more and more. So this is what that scheme entails, H.R. 127.
So the only thing I'll add to H.R. 127, Chad did a great job of breaking that down, but what I'll add is that when we look at the, situations where you have the FOID cards and all of that sort of thing, right, there's a couple of issues. One is it disenfranchises normal people, right? Back when, in the late summer when this whole this run on guns occurred, right? Everybody was buying every single gun, and they still are buying every single gun they can get their hands on, right? You had all of these, leftist and liberal gun owners coming out of the woodwork going, wait a minute, there's a 10-day waiting period to buy a gun? Wait a minute, you mean I got to go here and stand in this giant line and submit all of this information and have my privacy, I have to have my privacy, infringed on and everything like that just to own a gun? And you had a lot of people coming out of the woodwork and being surprised that they were led to believe that you could just order a gun and have it shipped straight to your door, and the UPS man shows up with a smile and delivers your brand new Glock straight to your front door.
Or use the gun show loophole.
they have realized that the things that they hate, that they've been told to hate about gun owners and gun ownership, that they're actually subject to as well. And it's a two-way street. So it also just disenfranchises gun owners, because one of the types of things that they end up running into as well is, all right, when you make the situation overly burdensome, expensive, all the regulatory headache, especially additional fees, which we're going to get into here in a minute. Of course, one of Biden's plans is that he wants to impose a $200 tax on every gun he considers to be a naughty gun.
And magazine.
Yes, and magazines. So when you make it so regulatorily burdensome, okay, that your average person is like, you know what, I scrounged up $500 to buy a Glock, but you know, this $200 tax, that puts it over the edge, and I can't do it, right? It becomes a poll tax at that point, right? Yep. And if you guys read my letter that I submitted to Regina Lombardo, the acting director of the ATF, on the brace situation, that's a future video, I'm not going to get into that, but in my letter, I laid out several constitutional flaws in the NFA in general, right? And there's been situations where there used to be poll taxes, and that was to disenfranchise minority voters and keep them from voting by having a tax to vote. And then also situations where several Supreme Court cases have shown that you can't tax a right. So there becomes some constitutionally questionable and morally questionable things that arise from something like H.R. 127. So beyond the regulatory burden and beyond the burden of additional paperwork, I think your average gun owner on the street who's just an average person that wants to exercise their rights, the more of this red tape that they see in front of them, they're going to go, you know what, maybe I don't need a gun.
Maybe it's not worth the trouble.
The reason for these bills is so that it's hard and so that people don't want to exercise their rights. So the guise is not to make the world safer or to, you know, change that in any way. It's not going to make anybody safer. It's just going to make the average person go, you know what, maybe I don't want to exercise my rights. This is too much trouble. Do we really have to do all this? And it's going to go further down the rabbit hole, so let's keep going.
All right. H.R. 130, to require the safe storage of firearms and ammunition and to require the investigation of reports of improper storage of firearms or ammunition. It is also worth noting here.
Also Sheila Jackson.
Also Sheila Jackson Lee. It is worth noting that none of these bills that we've mentioned thus far have any co-sponsors. However, the next bill that we are going to mention does have co-sponsors. All right, so safe storage. All right, we've talked about safe storage laws and things like that in the past. Some states do have safe storage laws. You know, you are legally bound to store your firearms separated from its ammunition, okay, or their ammunition, in a secure container out of unauthorized hands. Okay, that includes other family members, that includes children. Okay, say you live in a state where you have to have a firearms owner's identification card. All right, you are the owner of those firearms. Technically, no one else is supposed to have access to those firearms, so they have to be stored. So even the gun that you would use for self-defense, even if you're able to legally defend yourself in the state that you live in, okay, or under these draconian policies, which, you know, many people would love to see come to the light of day, you would have to unlock your safe storage container, load your magazine, and then load your firearm in order to defend your castle, okay, if it comes to that. These safe storage laws, there is common sense in some of this, okay? But common sense does not need to be dictated through law, okay? If you are a gun owner, yes, your guns should be stored away safely. But should all your firearms be legally bound to be stored safely? No, they should not. It should be up to an individual's discretion. If you're a single person and you've got no kids, nobody else comes over to your house very often or whatever, the only people that come over are adults and they're other gun-toting people, whatever the case is, probably safe to say, you can probably store your guns in a closet or whatever the case is, but you know, it's best to secure them against theft and burglary and things like that. But should there be a law dictating it? No, absolutely not.
H.R. 130 is just chipping away at the same old block, trying to erode our rights, right? So I don't think there's a single gun owner out there that goes, oh, I think I'll load my shotgun and lay it next to a tree out in the front yard for some kid to come by and find, right? So we're responsible people by nature, right? We obey the law. We store our guns safely. I mean, the thing is, no one wants to see someone get hurt. No one wants to see a firearms accident occur or any negligence occur, right? But the minute that you give the government the keys to Pandora's box to dictate, oh, well, this storage with H.R. 130, well, then, all right, what's the next version of H.R. 130? Will it be that there has to be, monthly inspections? And then, part of the monthly inspection is they have to make an inventory of your guns to see if you have gotten new ones. So, see, it all leads down the rabbit hole of being an invasion of privacy. And I think that what these lawmakers need to remember, with a D next to the name or an R, regardless, just people that are trying to subjugate people, right? And that's ultimately what it is. The end goal is subjugation. What they need to remember is that Americans value their privacy, right? And you look at things like the Patriot Act, you look at all of this snooping and the NSA and all of this spying, and then not all the tech censorship, all of the data mining and data sharing, and they're selling your data and recording all of your everything, right? So Americans are already on edge about their privacy being invaded. And I think that people need to understand that someone doesn't want to be told how to run their household safely when they're already spying on you, they're recording everything you're doing, there's facial recognition, there's just, without getting the tinfoil hat on, Americans are already on edge about their privacy. So this becomes an invasion of privacy and more of a, not only an invasion of privacy, go back up please.
Oh, sorry.
Not only an invasion of privacy, but then it becomes an issue of someone, one more area where they're being told how to live their life by the government. And I think we don't need as much of that right now. We could stand less of that in our society. And I don't care what side of the political coin you hail from, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what side of that political coin that you hail from. No one wants more oversight into the way that they live their life, right? We already have enough of that as it is. So I think that's a terrible idea.
Pretty much. All right, so... all right, the first pro-gun piece of legislation, H.R. 95. All right, this was introduced by, Jeff Duncan, and this has 36 co-sponsors. Introduced on the 4th of January, 2021. Okay, same as many of these other bills. They were introduced on, I guess, the first session day, or first day of the 117th Congress.
Jeff Duncan,
Republican, South Carolina.
Out of South Carolina, District 3.
So, this is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to remove silencers from the definition of firearms and for other purposes. I had heard that the HPA was reintroduced. I can only assume that this is what the HPA, the Hearing Protection Act, would be.
Certainly in the same vein.
So removing suppressors from the definition or from the purview of the NFA, that would allow silencers, suppressors, to be purchased just like a firearm across the counter, okay, without the obligatory $200 NFA tax, okay, and registration process, the whole 9 yards, because silencers are just that. They are a firearms accessory, but in the vein of the law, they are considered a firearm, and they are considered under the National Firearms Act, okay? We've come a long way. There are more silencers out in the world these days than there have ever been before, and it's just going up almost exponentially, it seems, with new gunners coming into the fold and realizing that they can take advantage of NFA items. Most people previously understood NFA items to be naughty, naughty, bad, bad, and illegal. But when they're educated on firearms ownership and firearms law, they say, man, silencers, those are fun. Oh, I can own that? Oh, great, let me go buy one.
And for those that don't realize it, okay, if you're a noob when it comes to the firearms world, suppressors do require a $200 tax stamp be paid, and the whole rigmarole of going through the NFA in order to own it, and of course, in many cases, a 8 to 12 month and sometimes even longer wait to hear back from the ATF and them to accept your tax stamp, and then you have to go back to the FFL. It's a huge, crazy, burdensome process to obtain a suppressor, and I agree with that bill. I hope that if they can remove suppressors from the NFA and make them easier to get. They are in much, much more common use, to definitely back up, what Chad mentioned. And, as I have owned more suppressors, I really enjoy them. I prefer to shoot suppressed whenever I can. In a hunting situation, you're sitting there, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and the sun's coming up. You hear the birds chirping, you hear the squirrels rattling the leaves. You think it's a deer, but it's really squirrels. And they're out there, and then all of a sudden, big old buck comes running in, and you go, yeah, I think I'm going to shoot this buck. And you take your 9.3 by 62 hunting rifle, and you go, boom, and you shoot. And it's like when something is super, 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 super quiet, and then it goes to super, 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 super loud, it's way, way more loud than the loud was to begin with. It's like you're breaking the silence of like hours of silence. And I have come to really appreciate suppressors for helping your hearing, save your hearing. It's also much nicer to your neighbors. Even if you're out on a Sunday shooting a 22 and having a suppressor on your 22, I really try to shoot suppressed as much as I can. I don't always shoot suppressed, but I try to be courteous to my neighbors, and I feel like a suppressor is a nice courtesy, especially if you live in let's just say a rural area where you can shoot in your yard, but you may have some neighbors within earshot that don't want to hear a 7mm Magnum hunting rifle go off every 10 minutes on a Sunday morning. So, I don't know. It's just, to me, suppressors are a nice courtesy to those around you, and they definitely help preserve your hearing, which my hearing is shot already. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole of why my hearing is shot, but let's just say it didn't happen on this continent. Let's move on.
All right, so that's, like I said, the first piece of pro-gun legislation. Here is another one that was introduced by, let's see, H. Morgan Griffith from Virginia. All right, so this is, there's no text, so I don't really know how to explain some of these bills. This one is to amend Chapter 44 of Title 18 United States Code to more comprehensively address the interstate transportation of firearms or ammunition. Okay, I can only assume that this is regarding transporting your firearms across state lines, and not if you're going through a state that has draconian firearms laws and you wind up breaking down or something and you have to have your car towed or whatever the case is, or you have to stay there for the night, whatever the case might be, you could be in violation of the law in that state and not even know it. Right. Because you don't live there. But to make it easier to travel across the country with your legally owned firearms, that's one thing I could maybe assume. Another one is maybe to address some of the threats against the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Okay, this was enacted a long while back. Okay, and what that law does is it protects companies, okay, manufacturers mostly, dealers and such, who produce and sell firearms, okay, to individuals, consumers. It protects those people from liability from the end use of their products. It'd be like, okay, Joe Blow goes and buys a gun. Okay, well, he has that gun for 10 years, and then one day he just snaps and he goes down and he decides he's going to murder his entire family. Okay, well, he gets charged with a crime, correct? He gets charged with multiple murders, multiple homicides. Okay, well, who's to blame? Well, if it wasn't for the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, then the gun dealer would be liable. The gun manufacturer would be liable, and if that was the case, then we would have no gun industry. It's the same thing with like vehicles. Okay, there's no there's no common sense person that would think, okay, well, you ran over this person in a Nissan, so therefore Nissan is to blame for that action of that individual. It's just asinine.
If the car companies could be sued for every time a car was misused by the end user, there would be no car industry. No. And that's the precise point of them wanting to do away with that type of stuff. I will also just add, and I'm not even going to speculate that this is even in the vein of HR 225.
We're speculating here.
I will say, too, that, okay, say you're going to take a cross-country trip. All right, I live in Georgia, and I'm going to go, let's just go really crazy and say, all right, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to go all the way across the country. You've got to cross all those states, and all those states have different storage requirements. They have different laws. They have different regulations. All right, in this state, you're a criminal. In this state, you're not. It's just so draconian. And it's so confusing, and it's purposely confusing. It's regulatorily burdensome. I keep throwing that word, but it is. They want it to be confusing so that people will go, you know what, I thought about going across the country to go hunt elk, but you know what, I don't even know if going to hunt elk is even worth it, because I don't know if I'm going to stop at a hotel and have some cop pull up and go, all right, I need to see what's in that gun case, or something like that, right? So, and then you deal with the issue where some states, the cops are really cool, right? They get it. They're gun people. And you go to some states where they're fervently anti-gun. Certain jurisdictions, the police are fervently anti-gun, all right? If I have a gun case in my car and I'm riding around or whatever, and let's say I have and I'm just giving you for instance here. I'm not necessarily saying that hypothetically I wouldn't do this, but let's just say I had a gun case exposed in my car or something. And if I'm in rural, middle of nowhere Georgia and go in the barbecue restaurant to grab a sandwich, and I come out with my half-empty cup and I just ate, and some cop or whatever down there saw my gun case, the question would likely be, you out hunting? Or, hey, what you got? Because they like guns and they're just curious. They're not being jerks about it. Okay, likewise, you go to the middle of Atlanta and go in the barbecue restaurant and come out with a Coke, and the cop goes, I'm going to need to see what's in that case. Because they hate guns, they hate gun owners, and they see all kinds of crimes related to guns all the time, so they can only assume that if you're at large in society with a gun that you're a criminal and you don't know it yet. So it becomes an issue where everyone views firearms ownership in a very different light, and it's very much a localized type of thing in terms of how people look at that. So anyway, without getting down that rabbit hole, just something to think about.
Yep. All right. H.R. 121. This is my favorite. To provide for the hiring of 200 additional Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives agents and investigators to enforce gun laws.
Only 200?
I mean, there's only like, what, 20,000? Tens of thousands of laws on the books. I mean, how many of those are gun laws? Maybe 20,000 of them are gun laws. I don't know. So hiring 200 additional ATF agents and investigators to enforce gun laws. Do we really have that many gun laws on the books that need enforcing? Is there really that much criminal activity out there that needs enforcing?
Oh, they're going to pass a bunch of laws.
To make us all criminals, and that's where they need those 200.
They're going to make you criminals, so they need more people.
That's it.
I think the other vein of this, too, is it's like, so the ATF can't hire more people to process paperwork? So,
I was going to say.
So I got to wait a year to get a suppressor, but they're going to hire 200 ATF agents to come and arrest me for something or shoot my dog or whatever. I mean, what gives? So we can hire 200 people to go arrest people that the political elite disagree with, but we can't, have a timely processing of paperwork? Okay, Sheila.
Bye, Sheila.
All right.
I mean, like, who is this woman? All right, HR 125.
I mean, why don't we hire 2,000?
I mean,
why don't you hire 20? Hey, you're just printing the money.
It's just money,
There's
right?
nothing to back it up. We've been running in the red since 2002.
No.
What does it matter? Just hire 20,000.
China's backing it up.
All right, let's move on.
HR 125. All right, to provide for a 7-day waiting period before a semi-automatic firearm, silencer, armor-piercing ammunition, or a large-capacity ammunition magazine may be transferred.
7-day waiting period.
All right, federal 7-day waiting period. A cool-off period, as some states like to call it, because, everybody who goes to buy a gun must be mad at something and they want to shoot something. So we got to wait. We got to have you cool off before you can take possession of that firearm, even if we're going to let you take possession of it, because, reasons.
So a 7-day waiting period for me to transfer my silencer after I waited 12 months?
Yep.
You're going to make me wait 7 more days?
Yep.
It's just, it's pretty crazy. I mean, and the other bill, Sheila, wants to ban certain types of ammunition. So in this one, she's saying that I am going to transfer the armor-piercing ammunition. And the other bill, she's saying I can't own it. So,
yeah, but you know what they call armor-piercing ammunition? I mean, they were trying to say M855 is armor-piercing ammunition, which it's not by definition.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy there.
Yeah. If you're buying that solid copper ammunition, that Barnes TSX ammunition to go hunting with, that's a solid copper round. That is armor piercing.
It's just another chipping away.
All right. Yep.
That's all it is. So first it's 7 days, then it's 7 months. I mean, what's next?
All right. This, no idea. HR 30, Gun Trafficking Prohibition Act. Just the title. No text, no nothing. No idea. And look, as these bills come out, we will revisit them when the actual text is available.
We'll do individual videos on these.
All right. HR 38. This is a pro-gun bill. This is a Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act.
Richard Hudson, a Republican of North Carolina in District 8.
Where were they at, 4 years ago? Okay, with this. Like, why? 156 co-sponsors.
So if you look at the type of legislation that's being pre-filed, it goes without saying that the pro-gun legislation has plenty of co-sponsors. The anti-gun legislation does not. Now, we're going to do a separate video on this subject. I know this has been long. We're going to let you guys go. That's pretty much the gist of everything that's out there.
It's everything I can find right now.
There's more to come, okay? No. This is just scratching the surface of what's coming, guys. But I want to mention that there's been a distinct cultural shift in this country for the Second Amendment, to the Second Amendment, right? There are more gun owners than there's ever been in the history of this country. There's more firearms in private possession than there ever has been in this country. Firearms are not the problem. Gun owners are not the problem. Terrible ideas that politicians have are the problem. More government and more laws are not the answer to our perceived problems. There are perceived problems and there are actual problems. And when we look at the things that are a danger to Americans at large, firearms simply aren't it. The data does not back it up. The FBI crime data actually shows that we are on our third year in decline of violent crimes being committed in this country for the third year in a row. Now, while you can't say that firearms aren't used in crimes, of course they are. But many other things are used in crimes as well, and there's also many other crimes that are committed that aren't violent, but are still very heinous, that don't even involve guns, right? We look at the war on child trafficking that is starting to occur. They're taking much stronger look at trafficking, and I think that's great. We've secured our borders. That's great. So there are many accomplishments, many physical and real things that we can do to increase the safety of Americans beyond something like punishing the good people. Criminals do not care about gun laws. Okay? If they have evil in their heart and they're going to do evil things, they are going to commit evil in any way they can, and they will find a way to do it, right? So punishing good, honest, hardworking people is not the answer. And I think that we're setting a very, very dangerous precedent if we allow things like this to continually chip away at our rights. We have the most difficult battle ahead of us in regards to the Second Amendment. The House, the Senate, the presidency are all controlled by gun grabbers. Gun grabbers that many of you voted for. Many of you have, within the last year, become a new gun owner, and you voted for the very party that want to take away your guns. It doesn't work that way. All right, they're not going to go, oh, well, did you vote for Biden? Oh, well, guess what? We're not taking your guns. No, they're coming for everybody's if they get as far down this rabbit hole as they want. Their administration has made it quite clear that they are at war with the Second Amendment. They're at war with lobbying groups. And ultimately, they're at war with the people. They're at war with conservative values. They've been censoring people. Big tech has been kicking folks off of platforms. It's gone completely crazy. If you compare videos that we made on this subject a few years ago, or even a year ago, or even 6 months ago in regards to tech censorship, we would have never been able to predict that what has happened in this situation would come to fruition so quickly. I mean, not hours and days. And here it is, just rearing its head.
They needed a catalyst to open the floodgates. And, you know, they got it.
We won't get into that on this particular video. We do have other videos coming. I hope that you'll enjoy those and tune in for them. More gun gripes on the way, guys. We're back to filming this year. We took, so every year, in case you don't know, I mean, around Christmas time, we take a few weeks off. We take a bit of time and spend time with our families. I get out in the woods and do some hunting. So I think...
I do some hunting myself. Hunting for space for all my kids' new toys that I told my family not to buy them.
Yes. There's that as well. But, you know, we take time to recharge and spend time with our families. So we're getting back to filming. I know there's been a few questions on various videos. Hey, when are you guys going to talk about the bull in the room? Guys, don't think we've been ignoring it. I've been taking a few days to kind of sit back and observe and really see what's going on and come up with a concise and logical response to this instead of, you know, emotionally charging in. So we always try to look at both sides of the coin, right, as best we can. So I hope you understand that. No matter what side of the coin you're on politically, just know we're all Americans here, and the people have a duty to each other to protect each other and to protect our families and our communities and to defend our rights. I may not agree with what you say. You may not agree with what I say. But we have to defend each other's ability to speak our minds. Freedom of speech is one of the most important things our founding fathers set forth when they made this nation, when they founded this nation. You know, they really wanted to make sure that people would have the right to say what was on their mind and to have the teeth and ability, the Second Amendment, to defend their words and their belief and to escape religious persecution and to escape persecution based on your beliefs, your thoughts. Your thoughts are your own, you know. So it's important that we foster an environment where we can have open dialogue and where people can share ideas concisely and fairly and honestly and for all to see and all to respond to. The moment that we lose that ability, it's over.
That's about right.
Guys, thanks for watching. Many more gun gripes on the way. We've got a ton of gun videos on the way. Tons of cool stuff. A very, very requested 5 guns video. Probably the most requested 5 guns video of the last 2 years is coming soon. I won't speculate, but you're going to like it. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Many more on the way. And definitely a special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you love gun gripes, if you love the videos we make, you can support us on Patreon. You can go over to Ballistic Ink, pick yourself up a snazzy t-shirt or a hoodie, or a beanie cap or a ball cap or any other stickers, patches,
any other manner
all kind of cool merchandise and things that we sell. You can support us doing that. Also, our man cans are awesome. We've really stepped up our game on those. We've got some awesome ones on the way. Make sure you go check them out, and there's many ways you can support us. Thank you so much. See you next time.
See you guys.